Hi, I'm Aakriti and this is a new episode of Kaha Stories. Today, our guest is Sahil Kini, founder of Setu. Hi Sahil.
Hi Aakriti, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey and how you got to where you are?
Sure. So like you introduced me, I run a API banking software company called Setu. We basically build connections between financial institutions and every other software company, making it possible for any company to become a fintech company. I'm an engineer by training. I grew up in a business family. My father, grandfather, everyone were entrepreneurs who started their own businesses. And so I grew up basically wanting to start a business. After my degree in engineering, I did a bunch of things. I was a consultant at McKinsey. I got some really privileged opportunities to serve in nation building by participating in the Aadhaar project in the early days. Did a bunch of other things in the middle. I was even a venture capitalist for 4 years immediately before becoming an entrepreneur. And I've also started up before and failed. So this is my second startup. So yeah, that's how I got here.
All right. So you're a founder now, but you've also been a VC.
Yes.
What is something you think founders should know about VCs and vice versa?
I think they basically are in the business of judging alpha. Alpha is a lot of risk and a lot of reward, right? So it's really hard to judge. So it's a judgment call business. It's about pattern recognition, and different people have different ways of making investments. There is no one way of looking at a business. So there are lots of things to know that they are essentially depending on their own past experiences, and just like humans are, they're flawed. So don't necessarily look at them as the arbiter of whether you should be doing this business or not. And what VCs should know about founders, and good VCs know this about founders because they've been in the business a long time, they've partnered with many founders. The thing to know for if you are a VC and you want to know something about founders is, and you'll say this, most VCs will say this, that a founder's job is very hard. They don't know how hard, they don't know how it feels to be a founder. That is something that is impossible to know until you get into it. And that feeling of the pressure, of having to take care of so many people, of what it feels like when you have 3 months of runway in the bank, they don't know what that feels like. So they should, that's one of the things that I think a good VC works on a lot, which is empathy, and trying to understand how it feels to be a founder so that you can actually be a good partner.
Okay, that's amazing. Now, follow-up question, and you are not allowed to be politically correct. Which is tougher, being a VC or being a founder?
Oh, being a founder, without a doubt. Being a VC is actually quite a fun job. It's very hard for anyone to say whether a VC is good or bad until they're at least 7-8 years into the business, until you've seen one cycle of investments. There's a lot of unstructured downtime because you're mostly doing meetings and doing analysis. And there are, of course, busy times when you're doing deals, and it can be high pressure, just like any other job. Whereas as a founder, you, particularly in the startup ecosystem, you're trying to build a business that keeps growing.
Correct.
And growth is painful. Muscle growth is painful, emotional growth is painful, business growth is painful, because you're changing things. You're never really able to kind of lean back and be comfortable in what you're doing. Seeking constant discomfort is almost part of
your job.
Yeah, it's part of the job description. So being a founder means you're responsible directly for all your employees and all your customers and all the partners that are there in your business. And that is a lot to take on. emotionally, and in terms of the sheer amount of work involved also is a lot more. And I don't think any VC would deny that being a founder is a lot harder than being a VC.
All right. Okay, thank you. So you've been working for a while now. Can you talk to us about a time in your career where you went through a really rough patch?
Yeah, I can talk about my first startup and shutting it down. I was 27 when I started this company. It was in industrial IoT, and I thought, because I had worked at McKinsey, I would know some, and a lot of my friends were associates in VC firms. This is where I learned that lesson, where I should be able to raise money, and so we set up a company. We were running. We even had a couple of paying customers, but I completely failed in raising capital, and whatever little money I had sunk it all into the business, and got to a point where we still hadn't reached product market fit, so to speak. And my co-founder at that time, my previous co-founder, got frustrated and said, he basically told me that he doesn't have faith in my ability to be CEO. And it's very hard to hear that, particularly from someone that you partnered with. And then he said, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. And that was very difficult. And at that point, I didn't know what I had to do. I spoke to a lot of people, and there's a lot of, you should keep going, etc. Then I spoke to my dad, who was also a businessman. He said, son, sometimes it's not our time in life. Cut your losses and live to fight another day. And so I took the decision to shut down the startup. And I had like 14,200 rupees in my bank account. I was getting married in 5 months. And I had no idea what I was going to do. So it's hard to kind of talk about. It's hard to talk about it because I literally ripped the name board off the wall when I shut it down, and then I ripped it off, and I fell to my knees and I wept. I cried, and because I didn't know. I mean, I was embarrassed and ashamed of my failure. I had no clarity on what I wanted to do next. It all seemed pretty hopeless at the time. But hey, it worked out. I got married. Still, I'm married to the same woman, and became a VC. Learned the rules of the game again, and started up. This time seems to be going a lot better. Fingers crossed.
So you went back to the basics and started again.
Yeah, I took time to recover. Once you shut down a company, something that you put so much of your heart and soul into, it's like a part of you dies, right? And it hurts. It hurts a lot. And so you need to take time to kind of recover from that loss. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I took that time. At the same time, it became very clear the emotional aspect of entrepreneurship was so much clearer to me. In my entire time as a founder, the first time around, no one ever asked me, so how are you feeling? And that's something that I really felt like was important. So I wanted to become a VC to say at least I could be the VC I wished I had.
Correct.
And at least have honest conversations with people.
Correct.
To empathize with people, to say, yes, I know it's hard. I know it hurts. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the job so much that I did it for like a lot longer than I thought I would. And then when I felt ready, I dove back in.
All right. Like you were mentioning earlier, being a founder can also be mentally taxing. Can you expand on this a little bit?
Yeah, it's probably the most mentally taxing thing that you can do after maybe raising a child. The idea is when you're in the early days, and there are different stages, and as your company grows, the challenges also kind of keep up. In the early days, it's just about, I used to be fond of saying, still say that the job of a founder is to create something out of nothing, and that's very hard when there's nothing there, and you've got to get people to sign up for your vision. That means prospective employees, investors, even a co-founder or anything else, anybody else that you want to kind of, because a company does not exist in a vacuum. You have to build the ecosystem for that company to exist and do business. And in the beginning, when you don't have any money or you don't have even that much clarity, right? Because you build clarity on your vision and your business by doing. So initially it's all about kind of getting people together, and that's very hard, and you can question yourself a lot. And then when you kind of get a little resources in terms of maybe a little bit of funding or maybe a few people that believe in the vision and are signed up, then it becomes about delivering on the promises that you've made to them. And there's that pressure of delivering on those promises. And if you have a lot of employees, then it's literally about, can I make payroll the next month, because they are, you know, to use a Hindi phrase, unka pet ka sawal hai, and you're taking care of their, I mean, the salary you pay helps them take care of their families. And the more souls on board, so to speak, right? You're the captain of the ship.
Absolutely.
And so that's a lot of responsibility. It can be an overwhelming amount of responsibility. And then of course there's the pressure for the business to deliver its goals, be it revenue or be it growth or both, which is again very, very hard. When in the early days of a company, the company is building its reputation as well. So it's pressure on multiple fronts, and that can, at the same time you're kind of processing that pressure, you can't show it beyond a certain point to your employees or your investors, because there's a relentlessly positive, optimistic, forward-looking front that you have to put up to get people to believe in the vision and continuously come to work. And because if you're down and you're sad and you're showing only all the tough parts, then energy is infectious, both positive and negative. So you have to be very careful about what you infect them with.
Correct.
So there's always this duality, this dissonance thing. You're putting up a front, and inside you're literally under crushing pressure. And that I think can be very, very difficult.
How do you think founders can benefit by taking care of their mental health?
Immensely. In fact, I discovered, just last year, one of my team members, my co-founder, was going through a difficult personal time, and he's like my brother. And during that time, I felt really bad for him, and I felt really bad, for not being able to do anything. There was a helpless feeling. And in one of my all hands meetings, I basically wasn't able to keep up the front. And I swear, I think I brought down the mood of the entire company. So that's when I realized that the founder's mindset and mood is the mindset and mood of the whole company. And to be able to kind of keep good vibes in a workplace, to be able to keep your team motivated, keep your business humming, the most crucial part is to be centered, calm, happy, and confident yourself. These are all kind of emotions that one looks for in a leader, and to be able to get to those emotions, the only way you can do that, no one else can give it to you, only you can do that for yourself. And it's very hard to do it completely in a vacuum. And so that's why I think it's very important that to take care of your mental health, you're conscious about what your mental state is, and then you take active measures like therapy or seeking support from your family and friends, your close family and friends, and being very honest about where you are in your head with those people that are not necessarily in the business context, so that you can get the help that you need, so that you're strong for yourself and for your team and your business.
All right. And what are some of the things that you do to take care of your mental health?
Well, firstly, I go to therapy, and I see that as like going to the gym for my mind. There's a lot of framing that makes it feel like it's like going to a hospital or a doctor. I really look at it as going to the gym, making your mind calmer, stronger, fitter. So that's something that I would encourage everyone to seriously think about doing. I try and meditate, not as regular as I would like to be, but that's a way to kind of check in and stay calm and be good to yourself. And because you have so many thoughts swirling around in your mind that your brain very rarely gets stillness, and out of stillness the most beautiful things can come out of kind of calming your mind and creating a little bit of space in your mind. New ideas need space to be born. So that's part of it. I sleep well, and so every day I try and make sure I get 8 hours of sleep, and I succeed most of those days. I'm trying right now not to make myself feel guilty about sleeping 8 hours a day, because there's a lot of lionizing of people who are able to kind of operate on next to nothing and push all the time, 100 hours a week, all of that. But sleep, I think, does a lot of good things for me. And the final thing would be to exercise, but I have not been able to do that. But I would like to do that much more.
Okay, I think that's a great list. Much more than what I've heard of other founders doing for themselves. Now we're coming to an end of this interview, and because I'm a huge lover of cliches, I'm going to end this round with a rapid fire.
Love it.
Okay, so let's start. One personal goal for 2020.
Be kinder to myself.
Awesome. 3 words to describe Sahil Kini in 2010 and Sahil Kini in 2020.
Wow. Scrambling, aspirational, and overconfident to the point of, I don't know, but I
overconfident.
Guess overconfident.
Okay.
In 2020, much more introspective, wanting to be more giving, so more oriented towards the other than self, and little bit more sure of myself.
Okay. If not an engineer, what would you have been?
Either a lawyer or a writer.
All right. This is my favorite. One thing that no one knows about you.
No one knows about me. I don't know. I mean, most people don't know that I used to do a lot of theatre in the past.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. And the last thing, I know you love reading. I know you read almost every day. Is there one book, now this need not be a business book, but is there one book that you recommend, that you think everyone should read?
And this is mostly for founders?
For everyone.
If it's for everyone, I'm just going to call out my favorite book.
Yeah, which is your favorite book?
Yeah, that I read last year, perhaps at least, is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Beautiful, beautiful writing.
Great. So with this, we come to an end of this episode of Kaha Stories. Thank you so much, Sahil, for being on this with me.
Thank you, Aakriti. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Sahil Kini, and my message to all of you is be kind to yourself, because it's very hard to be kind to others and for others to be kind to you if you're not kind to yourself.